Hello everyone. It's a pleasure to be here at the ASC Conference Generation Survey in London. I am not real. Well, I could be an avatar that a real human researcher could choose to digitally represent themselves in a research project.
Imagine a world where traditional online surveys are no longer the go-to, and researchers have something far more engaging at our fingertips. MMR and Simrise embarked on a journey to understand if there's a place for technologies like synthetic AI avatars in enhancing consumer engagement in market research, especially when traditional surveys seem to be facing a bit of a participation challenge.
Is it possible that the next big thing in consumer insights is not another survey platform, but synthetic AI avatars like me?
Like me.
Like me?
Like me. Like me.
Let us share more about what we discovered on this intriguing experimental journey. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Alexandra Kuzmina of MMR Research Worldwide.
Hello everyone, lovely to be here. My name is Alexandra Kuzmina and I am real. And I have the best job in the whole MMR. Sorry Louisa, she's my boss. Because I get a chance to explore and experiment with emerging technology that will shape the future of market research. And as the avatar mentioned, today I'm going to talk to you about a journey through better engagement to better data quality. And along this journey, we've run multiple experiments, we've collaborated with different brands. But before we dive in, I just wanted to explain a little bit why we started this journey in the first place. We started essentially to address the elephant in the room, which is the participation crisis. And we keep hearing that response rates are declining and fewer real people are taking part in research in general. And due to lack of engagement or even fraud, and because of that, data quality can suffer. And Ray Pointer, SMR's president, even predicted that a data quality disaster might happen this year. So we had a question whether emerging technology can help us avoid this disaster, that it can help make this research more engaging and improve data quality so our clients can be more confident in their decision making and that we can reach wider audiences beyond our serial survey takers and ultimately future-proof the whole industry. So we started this journey about last year, and we started with experiments with augmented reality holograms of researchers. And then we moved to generative AI. And with generative AI, you can generate an avatar to say pretty much anything you type in any language, thanks to real-time video synthesis technology. So we've done some experiments in Europe and the UK, and we had really positive results with these avatars. So not only the engagement was, we saw a very good impact on engagement, but also on the data, we saw 44% more words on average, for example, where the avatar was present. So we then wanted to understand whether this positive findings in the UK, how they compare to other markets. So we then partnered with Simrise, a global fragrance and flavor house, to run the project in Indonesia. So it was a concept test, a standard concept test, and it was completed by 636 females. And because what we were testing was some condiment ideas for Simrise, and female audience was the target demographic. And over half of participants were daily hijab wearers. And this is important, we'll come back to this. Now, a little bit about the project itself. So we had 6 distinct experimental cells. 4 of them were avatars, and they all spoke in Bahasa Indonesia. So we had a local female, a local male, a female wearing a hijab and a female that are used in the UK test as well. And here I dubbed her as foreign female. And so we were trying to match the avatars to be as close as possible to the target demographic. But we were quite limited by the choice that was available on the platform. So it was quite limited in terms of I think we did the best job that we could with what was available. We also had a control cell, just a standard online survey, and a cell that I call a validation cell. There was no avatars, but what we had was just the script from the avatar put as an on-screen instruction in this personable and conversational tone. Now I'd like you to look at these different experimental conditions and think, which one do you feel was the most effective in terms of data and engagement? And on my next slide, you'll have a chance to grab your phones and scan the QR code to vote on which experimental condition do you feel was the most effective. And hopefully I'll do some AV magic here to bring the poll up. Don't know if I need to refresh it. Certainly should try. Okay, and I'll give you a few more seconds to vote. So the question is, which of these 6 experimental conditions do you feel was the most effective? So we've got female wearing a hijab kind of winning at the moment. And I think everyone who wanted to vote did that. And I'll just go back to the presentation. Oh, local females also. Okay, so let's have a look at the results and see if anyone guessed it correctly. Okay, so usually verbatim is a good indication of engagement. So the more people feel engaged, the more they're willing to open up in the open ends. And here comes our first biggest surprise, that the cell with the, I'm not sure what's going on, sorry. The cell with the personable written introduction had the most words on average. And that was a big surprise for us. Now, the avatars didn't do that bad either, especially the female ones. And we know that cooking in Indonesia holds this female context. And this is perhaps why we've got slightly more reserved response to the male avatar. Now, what it does shows, although the differences are very minor overall, but what it does show is how important personability is. And also, if we can match the avatar closer to the audience, we can connect better to participants. Now, if we focus on the 2 female avatars, they were pretty close in the previous slides, but here when we ask participants to give feedback on the avatars themselves, we see a little bit more differentiation. And perhaps this, if it was not enough to drive engagement and drive the word counts on the previous slides, but we have a hypothesis that if we could match the avatar even closer to the audience, we would see the engagement go up even further. And remember that I said that over half of participants were daily hijab wearers. And here we can see that the avatar also wearing a hijab was consistently rated a little bit higher, which tells us again that the closer we can match the audience, the better they experience, the more positive they feel about the whole research experience. Now, as with any journey of exploration and discovery, there were some road bumps along the way. So our second surprise was that The sales with the avatars resulted in quite a spike in the dropout rate. So we had 43%. And we don't really know why those people left. And they left at the point of the avatar. We can only hypothesize, but what we do know is 85% of completions were on mobile device, which, again, hypothesizing, it could be that, they were worried about the data in Indonesia, and they could have been out and about, and then the video comes up and it was inconvenient. They didn't have the headphones. Maybe it was an unstable connection, unstable Wi-Fi. But it feels high, this number, but if I told you that in our first experiment with augmented reality holograms of researchers, the dropout rate was 93%, that puts things into perspective and also helps us come up with best practices to overcome these challenges and think about how we can mitigate this sort of things. And it also shows us how important it is to experiment and understand these things before rolling out the next new and shiny. But I've got some good news for you as well. One of the things that we really needed to understand whether introducing this generative AI content, how does it impact on the way that people perceive the rest of the survey, especially the themes that we show them and the concepts that we put in front of them. And I'm very pleased to report that the metrics were quite stable. So one of the key metrics was the overall liking of the concepts. And across all the cells, the results were stable. And we had a very similar result in our UK study as well, which means that while it is a new and dynamic way to engage participants, it does not really bias how they respond to the rest of the questionnaire. And this is really positive to see. Now, in terms of the takeaways, I'd like to leave you with 3. So, personability is king. And as we've seen, even small tweaks to your on-screen language can make a huge difference to the way people engage and how they respond and how positive they feel about the whole experience. Avatars can help engage, but to do that really well, they must be culturally and contextually appropriate. Otherwise, people just would not engage. And optimize technology for context. For example, if mobile participation is expected, think about putting some reassurances about the data, putting some managing expectations that a video is coming and how long it would be could mitigate those surprising scenarios that we've seen with this research. And thinking about the future and looking into the future with the question that I posed at the beginning, I think the path is pretty clear, that there will be some technology that will drive personability, and it's very likely to be around the evolution of these avatars. And they are likely to be culturally and contextually appropriate, and who knows, maybe participants will be able to choose the avatars that they are willing to engage with themselves rather than us as researchers trying to make those choices for them. Also, we know that Gen Zs love to be in control. So to illustrate that, I'd like you to think about chatbots, conversational AI that we've spoken today quite a bit, and voice technology that was also mentioned that we also experimented quite extensively at Nova at MMR. So these two technologies currently separate will merge together to power the digital human avatars as embodied chatbots. But it's not going to be a video like the one that you saw today. It will be a two-way conversation, and which means that finally this conversation could be done at scale, meaning that qualitative and quantitative research will become just what it is. Research. And we're not just reporting on the signals of change, we're driving this change with our next experiments. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I have a question before I open the floor. Just so I understand it right, the avatar was doing the whole survey?
No.
No, okay.
No, the avatar did the introduction
Right.
So it appeared only once at the beginning of the survey, and it said, "Hello, I'm so and so. Welcome to this survey. This is about some concepts. Please don't, please speak your mind. They're not my concepts, and I'm just very curious about what you have to say. And I'm the person who will be reading your comments on the other side. So, kind of meaning, please make a little bit more of an effort."
All right, so I was wondering whether it was dropout was linked to a longer survey, but that wouldn't have had an effect because it was the same length of survey.
Yes, it was the same length of survey. We were also trying to measure the impact on the avatars because we were testing several concepts, and it does wear off at some point. But we can see that clear impact where the avatar is present. So it really helps engagement.
Okay.
Oh yeah, fascinating study. Really liked it. The thing that I think is really interesting about the avatars, and sort of like would be my hypothesis for why you experience that drop off, is that like lack of social contract, in that they know that they are not real people, so they maybe slightly resent like being made to listen to them to a certain extent. And I think that if you're if you're a participant in a survey environment, your kind of imperative is not to kind of experience a personal connection, it's to efficiently do the survey. And listening to someone speak takes a lot longer than reading, a personal introduction. So I just wondered, but that said, I think that there is something really interesting in creating a social contract through an avatar. But I think there's some sort of uncanny valley. If it's not perfect, then it's not good enough. Like, what are your thoughts on how you envisage? Like, would you envisage an avatar running the whole interview? And if so, like, in what way would you imagine that happening?
Very good question. Thank you so much, Jack. A few things. So you mentioned. Sorry. Yes, similar when you get several questions. So first of all, I wanted to reflect on the kind of the social contract that you mentioned. I think in the UK study we saw exactly that. So people really connected. So it almost felt like having the avatar created some sort of obligation for people to be more helpful and to not to do just the keyboard slams or ChatGPT responses and all of that, and actually to give meaningful feedback, thematically more meaningful rather than just more words, and helpful, useful feedback for the client. And to reflect on your on the uncanny valley comment, we actually measured for that as well. We didn't see much differentiation in the Indonesia study, but something that we saw in the UK study where we had two cells, so one where we had just one video introducing the avatar saying, "Hello, and I'm so-and-so, please let's do this." And and then in the other cell, we had two videos where the avatar was also asking an open-ended question. Now, in that two video cell, people felt consistently more freaked out. So, so we had a hypothesis that the more people, too much of AI can be a bit creepy. And these avatars, they're not cartoony characters. These are real people who, I like to say, sold their digital soul to these platforms, and now they're saying what they would never have said, and that the things that we type. But they're still like real human beings. We just kind of automate the movement. So the hope is that it will. I suppose the comparison is that we're trying to compare how the current experience with the quant surveys are, and I don't know if anyone else in this room wants to wake up in a world where 30-minute research surveys are still true.
At the back.
Mike.
I just want to build on what Jack's question and your point about people connecting with these avatars, because there's sort of two big trends that are happening. One is, if you look at tools like Character.ai and Replica, where people are building genuine emotional bonds with, boyfriends that they've created in the. And you look at the trends in generative video, I think interview and respondents in a way that is hard to visualize when you look at the sort of, the gap between the time lag on the mouth moving and the voice and the way that they're doing now. It's not going to be how this stuff's going to play out in another year or so. So I think we'll see a big change.
Yeah, definitely agree with that, Mike.
I wonder whether or not we could get the participants to just say what kind of interviewer they want, and they type it in, and then it automatically generates the avatar that's best for them.
That's a brilliant idea, yeah. Or maybe it's an alien or an animal.
Who knows what people will want? I imagine there's some crazy stuff.
I think there's another question.
Just a point of consolidation. I really like that piece of work. I did an almost identical thing a few years back and got a very similar result. At the time, it was really expensive because we actually had to employ an actress to voice it.
Right.
But I do think you're heading in the right direction. I would encourage you to pursue it further and work on the narrative. Because I think if you could make what they say a bit more quirky and a bit more interesting and less corporate, perhaps, I think you might find it cuts through a bit better. I would encourage you to do more.
Thank you. Yeah, that's really positive and encouraging. Thank you so much. Oh, there's another one.
It's more of an observation, really. I wonder if the text works better because people are replying by text. So if you're being spoken to and then being expected to type an answer, it doesn't feel that there's engagement going on. So maybe my observation would be that you've actually got an engaging piece of text at the start, which engages you back to type back. If you tried it with voice response, you may see a different response rate.
Yeah, definitely. It's a kind of, we can experiment in different ways and but we've seen how, especially in Asia, people respond better to just but it was a personable tone of that on-screen instruction rather than just, here are some questions, answer them. It was like the same thing that the avatar said, but in just a more conversational manner. And yes, people seem to kind of react to that better. We haven't tried to replicate exactly that setup in the UK, or elsewhere in Europe, or the global north. But it's definitely an area that we'll explore. Thank you.
It was always you. It's always you.
No, I was thinking, could you tell that, for example, could you segment the respondents by people who used to talking to Alexa and Siri, and because I never use those tools and I hate talking to a computer, so I would find it, I think, maybe off-putting to see someone I know is not real talking to me, but maybe there is a difference between people who are used to that technology or at least used to talking to computers and talking to a device.
Yeah, so I suppose this is kind of a first step towards kind of making quant surveys more human and more engaging, and we don't expect participants to talk back at us just yet. We're just hoping that they will be more willing to give us meaningful feedback in the open answer and pay more attention to the questions that we're asking and kind of be their true selves. But yeah, it's an interesting thought, and in our other experiments that we do with voice, for example, we do segment for kind of more advanced users and more sort of or early adopters of those sort of things.
A great experiment. Thank you very much.
Thank you.